You know how sometimes you hear a melody in a song and then it pops up again later in a totally different way? Well, today we're diving into a really fascinating theological idea. The idea that an ancient story isn't just a one-off event, but maybe, just maybe, it's a deliberate echo of something that's still to come. And that really brings us to the big question we're tackling here. Can a story from thousands of years ago actually be a kind of blueprint for the future? Is it possible that it's a preview of a prophecy? That's the core idea we're going to unpack, based on one very specific way of looking at these texts. So, before we go any further, we got to get a handle on one key concept: foreshadowing. You've definitely seen this in movies or books, right? It's when the writer drops these little clues, these subtle hints that don't totally make sense until, bam, the big reveal happens later on. It's like leaving a trail of breadcrumbs. Well, the perspective we're looking at today applies that exact same idea to theology. All right, let's see how this actually plays out. We're about to explore a pretty powerful example of this kind of pattern seeking, where people find what they believe are these deeply hidden connections, not in some novel, but inside sacred texts. Now, the central claim here is pretty bold. It suggests that two of the most massive events in the Bible, one from the Old Testament and one from the New, aren't just separate stories. Nope. The idea is that they're two acts in the same play, designed from the beginning to mirror each other. In theological terms, there's actually a name for this. It's called typology. So what are these two big events we're talking about? Let's lay out the ancient blueprint that this whole interpretation is built on. Okay, here's the side-by-side. On the left, you've got the past, God's appearance on Mount Sinai, right out of the book of Exodus. And on the right, you have the future, the prophesied second coming, from the New Testament. The whole argument here is that Sinai was the foreshadowing, and the second coming is the main event it was pointing to all along. And now we get to the heart of it all. The source material we're looking at leaves out count them, 8 specific parallels that are said to tie these two epic events together. So let's walk through them one by one. First up, let's talk about the sheer spectacle of the divine arrival. In the Exodus story, there's a thick cloud on the mountain. The New Testament prophecy? That he will come in the clouds. See the echo? Then you have Exodus saying the Lord arrives in fire. And what do you know? The epistles say he'll be revealed in fire. And finally, the simple statement that the Lord descended at Sinai lines up with the prophecy that he will descend from heaven. Okay, next theme, the announcement. How does everyone know it's happening? Well, at Sinai, there was the long sound of a trumpet. And in the prophecy of the second coming, the trumpet of God. That's a pretty direct link. Now, this next one is interesting. The third day at Sinai is connected to prophecies that some people interpret as also referring to a third day. But notice the question marks. Even the source material admits this one is a bit more speculative, not as rock solid as the others. And the final set of parallels is all about the people and their role in these events. At Sinai, the people of Israel are called to be a priestly kingdom. Flash forward to the book of Revelation, and believers are described as, you guessed it, a kingdom of priests. Then there's the preparation. At Sinai, the command was for everyone to prepare by washing their clothes, which is seen as a parallel to New Testament calls to cleanse yourself. And that last one, the moment Moses went up the mountain, is seen as a preview for the prophecy that we will go up to meet the Lord. So we've just walked through all 8 parallels. Now let's kind of zoom out for a second and think about the bigger picture here. What does it all mean when you look at the text through this particular lens? And this really gets to the most important question, right? So what? We've laid out all these patterns and echoes, but why does any of this actually matter to the people who read the text this way? What's the big takeaway for them? Well, for believers who use this interpretive method, it is a huge deal. It's not just about finding some clever literary tricks. The whole point is to see the entire text from Genesis to Revelation as one single, unified story, written by a single author with one grand plan. In this view, Sinai isn't just some random event in history. It was a dress rehearsal. It was the movie trailer for the grand finale. And that leaves us with one last really fascinating question to chew on. When we find these kinds of patterns, these echoes across centuries of text, are we actually uncovering a hidden meaning that was put there on purpose? Or are we just seeing the incredible power of our own minds to find patterns and create meaning by connecting the dots ourselves? Something to think about.